Base Case Season 2, Episode 29, Habit 3, Part 2. Okay, this is Part 2 of Habit 3. Part 1 being Episode 28 from Covey's book on the 7 habits of highly effective people. And as I mentioned last time, I go out of order. I went Habit 3. Mostly because I want to hone in on concepts that can help propel us as bass players into reaching goals and getting results. To put it bluntly, we want to play better. And Habit 3, as I talked about last episode, focuses on putting first things first. That cool Goethe quote about never let the unimportant get in the way of the important. And last episode, the part 1 of Habit 3, I talked about the things we sometimes, a lot of times, turn to. Looking at our phones instead of practicing. Maybe it's not looking at our phones. Maybe it's practicing things that are easy to us and make us feel better, but don't get us closer to getting results. Getting results. I love that phrase. If you hear it all the time on the weight training bodybuilder videos, and those cats that they always say getting the results you want, and they're talking about getting bigger, stronger, and more toned. And we as bass players are hopefully focused on playing better. However, that is defined. Knowing more tunes, being able to solo over 2/5s, being able to play heads and melodies, being able to play arco better. Now, there was something I touched on briefly the last episode about this chapter in Covey's book, and it was quadrants. And he's got these diagrams in the book. And in this chapter, there's these 4 quadrants. Now, 2 of the quadrants are important. That's how they're labeled. One of them is the urgent. These are crises, pressing problems, and, as he puts it, deadline-driven projects. I've got to get a new battery for my truck. That's a pressing problem, right? I got to go deal with that. And it's a bit of a crisis, right? And in some way, it's a deadline-driven project. You can't just wait. I got to get this battery in so I can get to the gig. You've got to take care of quadrant 1. They're the urgent, important things. There's no getting around them. This isn't looking at my phone, checking my emails. I got to get this done. It's a high priority item. Battery is out. I can't get to rehearsal, lesson, gigs, etc. And as Covey writes, quote, it contributes to our mission, our values, and our high priority goals. But there are not important quadrant 3 urgent matters. These are interruptions. Emails, phone calls, texts, some meetings, and some, as he puts it, popular activities. But that quadrant 2, that's the one we're after. That's the area we value for our bass playing. It requires a vision, planning, discipline, and a lot of control. And the stuff that we do in quadrant 2 answers Covey's question at the beginning of that chapter. What one thing could you do in your personal and professional life that, if you did it on a regular basis, would make tremendous positive difference in your life? And it can be more than one activity, and probably should. If you worked on your sight reading 10 minutes a day, 6 days a week, every day, 6 days, right? it would make a tremendous positive difference in your life. But as he puts it, to find the time for quadrant 2, you've got to take it out of quadrants 3 and 4, the time wasters that can be handled later. You remember the sand in the rocks video that I was talking about? That sand, that's 3 and 4. That's the stuff that's getting in the way. Quadrant 1, that's the car battery. You can't take it out of there. Now, does that mean you can't check emails, text, talk to people that you encounter in the hallway? No, you're going to have to do that. But you've got to prioritize your practicing to get the results. It's one of the biggest problems I see as a teacher. I was going to practice last night, but the deal is, if you prioritize practicing, a lot of this stuff gets out of your way. There's some sort of thing that's happening. You've got to have that vision. And you've got to plan it. This is what's missing with a lot of my players. And this is why I keep their responsibilities small. I'll tell them, work on this chart this week, but only to the first 40 bars. Don't go any further. If you do, you'll get caught in the morass. Another problem. But you got to put in, what's your vision? Do you want to be a better sight reader? I like that idea because that requires planning and putting it first in your practicing. Low prioritizing the quadrant 3 and 4 stuff. I'll talk more on this. If you have questions, email me at phil@basecase.co. I'll talk to you soon.